Hello, and welcome to UU Wellspring, Spiritual Deepening for the UU Soul. I'm Linnea Nelson, the Executive Director of UU Wellspring, and I'm here to talk to you about bringing UU Wellspring to your congregation for the very first time. Also, if you are a small to mid-sized congregation, you may want to listen in as we're going to be talking about the more accessible pricing for smaller congregations. Here's our wonderful board of directors. They are a dedicated group that is looking at how UU Wellspring can meet the needs of all congregations. UU Wellspring is a small ministry program that answers the question, what will you do with this one wild and precious life that is posed to us by the poet Mary Oliver? In a 10-month period of time, usually starting in September and going through June, participants gather in small groups of around 10 people, led by a facilitator who uses a program and a set of curriculum materials from UU Wellspring to help guide the group to deepen their spirituality through deep listening, readings, reflections, spiritual practices, and working with the spiritual director outside of the program. We'll talk about all of these, but it's been around for about 15 years now, and so we've made slight changes each year to make sure that we are relevant to all of our congregations, and especially now to our smaller congregations. Why might you be interested in UU Wellspring? Well, you'll find that participants enjoy living more. There becomes an opportunity to look at the purpose of life, and this is very fulfilling to most people. It also is an opportunity to develop your own UU lens in a way that encourages people to be more participatory in their congregations and take on leadership roles in a way that they might not have otherwise. Many of us are called to justice making, and UU Wellspring helps to sustain us in that work. It brings spiritual power to your community, and I find that as people delve into their own spiritual lives and their own sense of who they are as a Unitarian Universalist, that spiritual power comes forward through leadership and justice making. There are 5 spokes or ways of transforming in UU Wellspring that we've identified. First, the small group connections. People are called to come together, create a sacred space, and to listen deeply to one another. This is an opportunity for our souls really to speak and to share and listen and become a bonded group that is a place where people can't wait to get to on a weekly basis. It may seem like a year is a long time, or 10 months, but after a few sessions, people are generally loath to miss a session. It becomes very important. We encourage you and we share our daily spiritual practices with one another. We look outside of the group for a spiritual director or a spiritual companion to continue the spiritual deepening work. We provide a deepening knowledge of UU history and theology by the readings that we provide. And it's your reflections to these readings that really become meaningful. And each time we meet, we have a so what portion, which is where we put our UU faith into action. It may not be one big aha moment, although for some people it is. I think the transformation comes in with every session asking ourselves, so what? Now that we've had this conversation, what does that mean in our lives? It is a powerful small group experience. UU Wellspring is intentionally and very carefully put together so that it leads us to a place where we can speak from the heart. It can be a very important way to make connections within your congregation and also to find what your spirit is telling you. Our congregations can be transformed when many years of UU Wellspring means that many, many people have participated and have felt that transformation themselves and that call to leadership. Know that we will look at the strengths inherent in our UU heritage, but we will also look carefully at the challenges that we've had, the oppression that is there, the systems. And that way, everyone is moving together in UU Wellspring and in our Unitarian Universalist movement. Individuals often tell us that these practical tools of spiritual practices that we talk about in our sessions, we check in around these spiritual practices, have really helped people develop a strong spiritual sense of who they are by participating in something that makes sense to them and deepens their own understanding and meaning in the world. We challenge participants by going deeper than maybe we would by reading on our own. We need this community to explore the ideas that are so important to us. And we're very excited to be able to financially provide a program that's accessible to most congregations. The way that it plays out is we begin with a 6 or 7 hour retreat for the entire group, including the facilitator, and someone from UU Wellspring leads this retreat. It can be done online, where the retreat leader's online and everyone else is in person at your congregation who's going to be in the group. So say you have 10 people, all 10 of those people would gather in one area, one room, while you have the retreat leader come in via Zoom or Facebook, something, or FaceTimes that allows you to converse with the retreat leader. The retreat leader can also come in person. And it's just a little more expensive, but perhaps we have a retreat leader who lives near you, and then that makes it less expensive for you. That retreat leader becomes your mentor throughout the first year, and I also provide some online opportunities for people to gather as facilitators to talk about how it's going, to learn from one another, and to share the experience. We provide a pretty extensive implementation guide that gives you lots of ideas about how to get your group started, how to publicize, etc. The curriculum program is all online. We give the facilitator a password, and that's how you can access it. You'll use that password also to get to the emails that you send out to your group, and this is all the pre-work. It's all in one compact email that you send out at the end of each session, and that allows the group 2 weeks to get ready for the next one. We have additional programs which I'll be telling you about. They're called our advanced programs, and we continue to offer support for all the facilitators in those programs as well. Now, it's getting to that it is now a size-based annual fee. We're a subscription program because we're always updating, always creating new materials. And so rather than our usual $500 per year per congregation, we are now asking each congregation to look at what number of members they sent to the UUA as their certified number. And so, for example, if you have 200 members, then you would pay $200 per year. And that includes the first year. Additionally, for just the first year is that retreat, because we know after you've been through a year of UU Wellspring, most likely you're going to feel comfortable doing the retreat on your own. But that first year, if you're going to do the remote option, it's $300, but that can be shared among other congregations who are also doing it remotely if you all pick the same, say, Saturday to do it on in August or September. It's also $500 plus travel expenses if you'd like someone to come in person. Our advanced programs, after you've done the first year of sources, include deep questions, which is about the principles. So sources is, of course, about the sources, and that's our first year. You can look at principles, justice making. You can deepen your spiritual practices, work on creativity. And a new one that we're writing right now is called Spiritual Ancestors, which will look at the voices from our past and see how they speak to us. This year, we're piloting a new youth experience, which is 8 sessions long. So you could do it once a month, or perhaps you'd rather do it over a 2-month period of time and you do it every week, something like that. It's pretty flexible. We hope to have that out by the fall, and we will be looking for additional pilot groups for that. We only offer the youth program right now in congregations that already have UU Wellspring so that you can support it with some of your leaders and some opportunities for perhaps spiritual companioning, to our youth. Here's a few more questions that I think people often have. How do you register? You can go to our website. You'll see my email there, but I'm also going to give it to you at the end of this presentation. Just send me an email. I'm happy to ask the questions that need to be asked and have a conversation with you, and then we can send you additional information. And basically, it's a very informal sign up. I will send you a link and you give us some additional information there so that we make sure we have all the right people to contact and which programs you plan to have this coming year. And who should you choose to lead the first year? Oftentimes it is a religious professional, whether it's your minister or religious educator. However, you may find that there's a lay leader or a community minister who'd very much like the opportunity to lead. It's important that that person, whoever is leading a UU Wellspring group, is able to facilitate in a way that promotes deep listening. We will be teaching that in the retreat, but that is a piece that the leader will need to hold firmly and clearly in the group. Also, the leader should be somewhat versed in systems of oppression and to be sensitive to all sorts of people who will be attending and to those people who aren't in the room, that the language that is used and the conversations have a sense of inclusivity, and we'll give you some tips on that as well, but you'll be reading a wide variety of resources and watching various films, and it's important that you have some sense of understanding what's important in power dynamics and such in groups. When it comes to spiritual directors, we're also suggesting that if paying for an outside spiritual director is not in your budget, that perhaps you'll want to do spiritual companions. And we'll talk more about that in the group itself. Most of the time, groups are around 10 people. I often encourage people to enroll 12 because often between the enrollment period and the actual start of UU Wellspring, there are a couple of people who have some long-term commitments that they realize they can't do UU Wellspring right now. There's moves, there's changes of family circumstances. And so if you end up with 12, it's perfectly fine. But if you lose a couple, then you'll still have 10, which is good. If you have smaller than 10, 8 or 9, it can be okay for that first year. Certainly everybody will appreciate having a smaller group to be able to have more opportunity to speak. But as UU Wellspring goes on, it's the listening that becomes so important. Who's going to be in that first group is another important thing to think about. You want to make sure that you have the opportunity for people to have the ability to facilitate groups in the future. So even though maybe you're facilitating the first group, or if you're not the minister, religious educator, whoever is leading the first group, you might want to continue with this group and lead an advanced group next year. Or maybe you'll want to stay back and lead another source's first year group and let someone from your current group become the leader of the next group. So just be thinking about making sure there's a few people who might be good at leading in the future. The financial commitment we talked about, it is based on your number of people that you certified to the UUA as your membership each year. And then the first year, there's one additional cost for the retreat leaders. Participants do need to buy their own books. If you buy them all new, it's around $75 for the year. For sources, it's much less for other years because we come back to many of these books in future years. Many of these books are also available in the library for this first year program, and so I think there are ways around it or sharing of books that make it worthwhile or make it work for people. And as I mentioned, the retreat, the facilitator for the retreat is someone who is from UU Wellspring, either our board or our former advisory groups. We have some online facilitators who also lead workshops and retreats. So we'll make sure that we connect you with someone who can lead the retreat for you. Pete says that UU Wellspring is a jewel of Unitarian Universalism. I think many, many people would agree with that. And I think that you'll find that your own experience in UU Wellspring is unique, but that it is transformational. Please reach out to me at any time, director@uuwellspring.org, or go to our website, uuwellspring.org. I am very happy to have phone conversations, email conversations, meet online on Zoom or FaceTime, whatever works for you, so that I can answer all of your questions. I hope to hear from you and have a wonderful year with UU Wellspring if you join us.